a whole new world to me. So look forward to hearing about it. And the conversationalist is Elaine Fisher. And Elaine's a retired, semi-retired journalist, keen photographer. And if you could ask, please, if you keep your questions to the last 10, 15 minutes of the talk, rather than during. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is that really? Lovely to see everybody here and lovely to see family in support of these two very confident, not the least bit nervous people. It's a real pleasure to introduce Bruce and Jen. Among the authors that we've had this weekend, they are unique for many reasons, mainly because they're co-authors. They're the only people among this weekend's festival who are co-writers, so that's something pretty special, and it's something I'd like to explore with them, because just how that works is also interesting. But one of the last questions I was going to ask them is actually now the first question. It's about AI, because at the end of the beginning of the second book, there is a disclaimer about AI, that AI was not used in the production of this publication, nor can anything in the book be used to train AI. But very cleverly, these two have now produced a calendar using AI. And I picked it up, I hadn't seen it until last night, and it features the characters from the book. And the characters look very much like I thought they would. So, Jen, I think this was your inspiration, wasn't it? Could you tell us a bit about that?
We have a very amazing marketing person actually who said, what would it be like if we put a calendar out there? So we could take pictures of the West Coast, but there's a lot of amazing people out there already putting calendars out with sort of graphics and things like that. And so I started thinking about AI. So in my work, it's become a topic. So I work in healthcare. And obviously AI is one of those things that's coming to the fore, and we're seeing a bit more use. Certainly lots of discussions about that, about how people use AI. And we decided to put the description of the characters into ChatGPT, and that's what it spit out. So I thought it's quite an interesting sort of concept, because I think AI is one of those things that the genie's out of the bottle, it's coming, and how we use it, I think is going to be interesting in the years to come. I think things are moving very, very quickly, and yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. The reason we put the disclaimer on the front of the book, you may or may not be aware, there was a lot of pieces of work that were scooped up by Meta. I think it was Meta. Like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of books that were actually put through AI training modules, and so without any recognition of that work for the people who'd written it. So a lot of authors have sort of stepped back from trying to protect their work. So that was kind of the first sort of thing where we decided to put the disclaimer in front of the book, but we'll wait to see what happens, so that's coming.
So Bruce, how did you feel about what AI produced? Did the characters look as you envisaged them?
I was not very happy with the several ones. It looks too much like me. Grey is not. But it actually is very descriptive on how I usually envision them. So yeah, it's actually very close.
Yes, that's quite stunning, isn't it? So let's go back to the beginning. And as you said, dystopian fiction, something that some people may be not familiar with. Can you tell us a little bit about the concept behind your books, Bruce?
Yes, I wanted to share a story from my past, but I needed it to be in a fictional setting, and hopefully the books stay as fiction and not non-fiction. So you've got nuclear war has erupted around the world. You've got radiation everywhere. EMPs, which is the electronic magnetic pulse, which kills anything with a chip in it. So I chose the West Coast because I do have a place over there that my wife might go over a lot. and they have their own microclimates. So I've built that into the story that the West Coast gets protected from radiation. It just bypasses it, so it becomes a very fertile area that also unfortunately attracts the wrong type of people that actually want to take it off these people. They use force, they use intimidation, all the stuff that you see in modern society would go 100-fold worse if there was no law and order. So these bad guys, the scavengers, basically thrive on this, and they want this fertile land. The main character, Brad, is a retired SASR soldier from Australia, and he's got out, he's had enough of war, and he just wants to deal with his own demons, and discovered by accident on holiday, took a wrong turn, ended up at Little Wanganui. If you go up to the west coast, the Upper Bulla, there is only a one-way, it's a cul-de-sac, so you can do a wrong turn, you're just going to keep going. So he fell in love with the place, he found a sense of serenity, decides to settle there. And 10 years later, after he's made himself a home there, all this war's erupted, he gets told that there are these bad people coming up. They know Brad's past, and he's basically having to bury all his demons to actually bring up a militia to fight. He doesn't want to, he hates it, but he has that sense of duty that he needs to do it. And the book, there's a lot of characters in there that I've added in slivers of myself, the men I've worked with, served with, day-to-day people that I've come across, and it's a way of me immortalising some of the ones that have passed on. The catalyst for the first book was one of my team members who I was extremely close with ended up committing suicide, and it really struck me hard because this guy I thought was stronger than me mentally and physically, and I started doubting why I didn't pick it up, why didn't I keep pushing him. So I reached out to a shrink who the first book is actually dedicated to, and he got me to write stuff down, what was weighing him down. And when I went back to see him, he asked me, when did this happen? And I've given the years, the dates, and he said, why are you still carrying it? Leave it where it's meant to be, leave it in the past, and just move on. Don't put us with it, don't forget it, just leave it where it's meant to be. By doing this writing down, I did find myself having a bit of serenity, so I just started writing, and it's a way of me having a sense of purpose again from being out of the military. When I served, that was my purpose. I was there to attack, I was there to defend. Once I got out, I didn't have that purpose in life. I was rudderless. Writing has now given me a purpose, because now I'm talking more to bringing out the awareness of how broken veterans are, or anyone that's in first responders. More so here in New Zealand. In Australia, we have an amazing support system with Veteran Affairs. So if I wanted to talk to a shrink, which I did, it all gets arranged. In New Zealand, if a soldier comes back from overseas, there is nothing. And if he does finally find somebody to work with, that person has not been in that environment, so can't really understand how deep it is. And the thing with the military, any frontliner, you need to have a shield, because you've got to portray that strength, and it's really hard to actually admit you're not 100%. So the more you read through it, you see how broken some people are and how they deal with it. And the first responders, a lot of people just think it's military, police, fireys, ambos, but you've got ER nurses, such as, you were an ER nurse, because they're having to deal with a death in a hospital bed. Then they come back the next day, there's another person there, and they don't have that support. You've got the doctors, you've got ER, they all basically face this. I do paddle work, stop go, that helps pay for the books to be printed. a lot of people don't understand that when there's a serious crash, it's the traffic management that turn up. So you might have an 18-year-old that's on his first day doing stop-go and he's had to see something he's never seen before, and then he has to go to another job and there's no real support. So I try and just put it through the book that when people read it, I have had veterans read it and they actually relate to it and they thank me because it's not weak to show that you're a little bit hurt. There's a lot of scars that we have aren't actually seen, they're not visible. I sort of just rambled there a bit.
Absolutely not. So, yes, as Bruce says, you also found when you got involved with the books that it was cathartic for you as well.
Yeah, so my background is I've nursed and overseas in intensive care units and emergency departments, and as Bruce said, it was a lot of the stuff that you're exposed to on a daily basis. You see people at their worst. I mean, when people are in intensive care, they don't get any sicker, and you deal with things and you support people and you push down a lot of the emotion just to be able to do your job and do it well. And I didn't realise how much baggage I was carrying from some of the people, the losses. I had patients that I looked after in the most terrible circumstances in their lives, and I still carry those people with me, and I remember them, but I didn't realise just how much that had affected me until I started working on this and actually started thinking about what does it mean to heal after you've had a traumatic experience. So, yeah. Intensive care, it kind of shapes you, right? And I think that's the thing. All your life experiences shape you. So what do you bring and how do you express that? And Bruce has helped me, with an avenue to actually be able to do that.
So tell me, Bruce, how did this come about with you and Jen working together?
No idea. I submitted my work to publishing companies and it all got rejected, and I was like, So I asked, I'm thinking it's something technical about military stuff. So I got Matt, who's ex-military, to read it through. He said it was all good. And an individual that's sitting across from me was not very polite about how bad it was. So she started changing some stuff, and we had a few robust discussions, and most of the time she was right. Occasionally I was right, and sometimes
you heard that as well.
And occasionally we negotiated what was to happen. Then Jen asked me, do you see me as an editor or a writer? And without thought, I just said, a writer. I have this raw idea of a plan of a book. There's a lot of emotion in there. It's very, in my opinion, looking back at the first one, a bit dark. And Jen has this ability to write and storytell in a way that becomes very polished and is able to interpret what I'm trying to get across, translate what I'm trying to get across. And she's really good at writing about women. I don't know women. She made it very clear. So she's built up this relationship with the characters that my aim is you either fell in love with the person, you had this emotional attachment with them, or you despise them to the max. And she's been able to actually do that. I'm not that sort of a wordsmith, I've just come up with the ideas. Jen is actually, that's the only way I could actually show my appreciation of how good of a writer she is. A lot of people, they put a little thing on the back, and listen, thank you to my editor. To me, that's the highest accolade I could give her, is have her on the title as well.
Very much deserved too. So tell me about Isabel.
so yes, I hated Isabel's guts. So what happened? I was the nosy wife. So as Bruce said, I got hold of the manuscript from my husband and started reading it, and I was, by the time I think I was like chapter 2, I was like, this horrible woman, I just want to take it, throw it across the room, because Isabel was weak and she was, kind of a bit manipulative and kind of whiny, and I'm like, she's a 40-year-old woman and she's giggling. It didn't quite resonate with me, so I really didn't like her as a character. And I had known Bruce for a wee while, and I knew who she was modelled after, and I'm like, that's not what this person's like at all. And I sort of felt that, in terms of like the character, she needed to be strong. She needed to be this counterpart, like a real balance for this very intense male character. So I think that was the first sort of thing I really started going, look, I just really hate her, and I don't really want her to make it through to the end, to be honest. And that's not a good place to be. So I want people to love her. I want people to really embrace that relationship. So she's his balance. And so I got out a red pen and I just started going through. But I think that the thing is that I was, even from the very beginning, I was very conscious of the fact that it's Bruce's story, it's his book. So all the way through, even in the very beginning, I was like, is it okay if I change just this word here, or what would the sentence look like if it was just a little bit different to this? And so to really honour the essence of the story and not interfere with it was really important to me. So lots and lots of communication, lots of discussions, so that I didn't damage the story, basically.
Discussions?
Yeah, well, as I've gotten through, I think by the time I got to book 2, I was like, I just read what he's done and then I just delete it. I rewrite it and I delete it. So I think as we've kind of gotten to trust each other a bit more with the writing, because that's the other thing, I've stepped into this as sort of the nosy person and just started tinkering. But it's taken a lot of trust, it's taken a lot of time to actually build up that relationship so that he knows that if I do change something, it hopefully will be better. And usually it's like I'll just put that in front of him and go, how does that sound? So that we do, it's a very respectful partnership, basically, to write.
It's a pretty unique one too, because I can imagine ego comes into this a bit.
No, I don't have one at all.
That's what got us into hot water in the first place.
It's been a very grounding experience. After the first, I'm like, yay, I'm an author. And then I got in trouble because I tinkered. Until I knew better. I had work handed back. I thought I'd definitely be making millions and be made into a movie. Second one has become more realistic that I'm not doing it for the money, obviously. I'm a self-publisher. But the ego does pop up a couple of times. I was telling people, yes, I'm going to be at a festival, yay. And then I saw who was here, and I'm like, oh. I see myself as a minnow compared to these other big names, and it's like that really just tempers things down. So we do bounce when one of our egos starts to inflate. We do nudge the other to go, I don't normally listen, so Jen just goes pop. So it just gets rid of it. So ego is it's probably the biggest thing that we've struggled with the first book, but we're learning.
You've got to have an ego to start with in the first place. So.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So the technical side of the book, you were saying that was something that you wanted checked. And it's become it's obviously a very important part of the book, which helps the narrative. And I would imagine for blokes reading it, that would be something they would really get involved with. But Jen's had to come up to speed with that side of things, and you've had to come up to speed with some of the medical issues as well, is that right?
Yes, apparently I put in the wrong thing in the wrong body part. Procedures, and she goes, no, that doesn't happen. Which, Jen, to get her an understanding to actually write the book, she has to understand like certain things like patrol formations, and I'd actually draw pictures. This would be scout group, this would be rifle group, this would be gun group. This is how you do this. If you had a 5-man team, you would have a tunnel alarm. If you had a counter, I'm just losing everyone. Well, you get me.
But what that means is, and that's how it works, right?
Yeah.
So quite often, like Bruce will write stuff, and I'm not military, so I don't understand, yeah. And so quite often I'll say, what are you talking about? What does that mean? And he will explain. I'm like, well, why didn't you say that in the first place, right? But that's kind of how it works. I think there's a lot of technical stuff, but in order to write it so that a layperson will understand it, you've got to kind of have a layperson's brain. And so it was quite funny because in Revolt, there is a very intense medical scene, and I was like, right in my element, because I know, I can see, how things work. And I had to, Bruce was like, no, you need to explain what does that mean. So it was a bit of a reality check actually being on the other side of that as well. Yeah.
I know how to do stitches now.
And I can set up a claymore.
So really you're finding that you do complement each other, that the books need both of your input.
Definitely. If this was just for military, they would get it and they'll just go to the gruesome stuff or the reality stuff. But this, as I said, like I've got the raw story, I've got the whole plan, how it's all going to end. Like we've finished the third, that's going through edits, but right from the beginning, I had a beginning, middle, and end. But it was very raw, and Jen's the juror that actually makes it look like a dime, whereas I just on the rough line, even though I don't look at it.
No, you scroll up then. So yes, there are 3 books in the series, and as you say, 2 of them have already been published. The second one hints at perhaps what's going to happen with the third one. There appears from my reading of it that there's some evil mastermind or masterminds somewhere in the background that we didn't actually meet in the Revolt. Is that correct?
You'd have to buy the third one. So my whole aim for the book, the first was to portray how life would be if you did not have technology. And I mean, you get it around the whole country, but West Coast are they learn to adapt. We call it identify, adapt, and overcome when an issue comes up. So you've got cars being towed by horses now because they don't run and you don't have fuel. So you're learning how people are dealing with not having technology. The second one throws the first book on its head because of what happens in it. And the third one then throws the second and the first on its head because there's so many twists in it.
Yes, that whole concept of how you would survive without technology is really interesting. Jen, was anything in that area that particularly caught your attention when you were working on the first book?
I think I had to go and, I think in terms of technology and things, I had to go and spend a bit of time on the West Coast to really understand what it's like over there. It's a very unique part of the world. And you kind of have this idea in your head, as I said, we use technology, we take it for granted. And AI, exactly, the next sort of phase of technology. So the idea of actually not having technology and actually what would it be like to go back to something where we didn't have fuel, we didn't have the modern conveniences were quite challenging. Also thinking about things like over time, if we were talking, because Brad in the book has a solar setup, But actually over time, batteries would degrade, and what would that be like, and how would you actually survive in that sort of environment? It took a lot of thought and a lot of investigation, actually, a lot of research into what would actually happen and how could you adapt. We've just had in the latest one, we're now going to spill the beans on this stuff, aren't I? He's developing a Stirling engine, and it's kind of like, well, how does a Stirling engine run? Because it's like, if you don't have fuel, how would it work? So using those sorts of older techniques of fuel, power generation, that sort of stuff, like how would people adapt, has been quite an interesting thing to go and research even just to find out about it.
Yes, I like the idea of a Toyota Hilux being towed by horses. It does make you think, which is always good in a book. It's good to be stimulated and to have other ideas come into your head. These books have been a collaboration between you two, but also family's been involved, haven't they?
Yeah.
Yes.
Some people.
Without Jill, there's no way this could have happened without her support. And we look at the cover, at the back, different colours to let you know which book is which is actually Jill's artwork. So that's my way of incorporating it. And do you want to explain?
Yeah, so and Lizzie at the back there is at the time she was 14, and we were sort of talking about the book, and she kind of came up and she said, what do you think about this as a cover? And Bruce thought, oh, this is good. So we picked it up and we run with it. So immensely proud of her, because she's really stepped forward, and she listens to what we say, and then she incorporates these ideas into something that can be used, and it kind of captures the essence of the story. So, but I think both of us would agree that having the support of our family and friends the whole way through, you can't do it, this sort of work, without having people to back you up. So I work full time, and I fit this stuff in and around my family and work, full time work. And I'm really conscious of the fact that sometimes it's like, okay, dinner's done, you kids are over there, and now I'm in the book, and really conscious of the fact that it does take time and energy that you would otherwise spend with your family. So having their understanding and their support is just incredible.
So it's a brave thing to self-publish too, because, as you say, it's expensive, it's time-consuming, and I guess you're learning on the job, really, aren't you? Neither of you had a background in this field.
No, it's been a very steep learning curve. I thought I knew how the book should finish, and Jen gave me back the first one, and I tinkered. I don't get Word documents anymore, it's all PDF that I can't change. I just highlight stuff and she'll look at it and we'll have a discussion. But for me, it's as I said, it's my sense of purpose. When I write, I actually lose myself when I'm writing, and I only write, I only write in pubs. If anyone was here yesterday, they would have seen me scurry across to the Mapua Spring with my laptop. I went across there to do some editing. I don't work at home because that's home. I can't do it at work because I'm holding a paddle. It's a bit difficult. But I do get characters that I can either, if they're not nice to me, I just get rid of them in the book. If they are nice, they become a book. I've just lost my whole train of thought.
So why writing a pub?
Because he's better. No, it's like a bolt hole. I get characters as well, and I touch type. It's now I think about 90 words a minute now. But as soon as I start getting JKLM, okay, I've had too much. Jen has picked up when I've had one too many. She's like, what did you mean by that?
Yes, was there a lot of that?
But it's also a way for, like I've had launches in the pubs. Like the first one was totally written at Springford and Hardy Street. The second one bounced between Hardy Street and Springford at Tahuna, the old one Springford. I do have come across to this one to do some stuff here if I want to get away, especially if I am doing a final draft edit, like we get given the last copy to go through. I'll come here because no one knows me, generally. Whereas at the other pubs, they do know me, and they'll come up and also get extra sales out of it. Because once I've had a couple of beers, so that's why I work in a pub. It's my estate.
When we met before, we had a catch up and had pizza at Spring Fern before this event, so we could all get to know each other. And I asked a silly question, Bruce. Do people peer over your shoulder to look what you're writing? Of course they don't. Why don't they?
Well, my back's against the wall to start with. It's a military thing. Like having that door over there is a little bit awkward. But I like to be in an area where I can actually see what's any threats or anything. I know that sounds really paranoid, but it's so ingrained that I'm always keeping an eye out. Not generally just for myself, but if anyone else needs help. So that's the main reason no one can ever look over my back. And I want them to buy the book.
So it's been an interesting journey. You have 3 books. What's next?
Because I'm not that bright, I've started 2 other books as well. I'm doing the editing. I've started a murder mystery based on the Kapiti Coast that starts from when Kapiti Coast got settled up until modern time, following a generational trend of police officers. And the other one is a spy thriller based out of Washington DC in Sudan.
So what's your research for those 2?
He's going to write it and he's going to give it to me and I'm going to do the research. That's how it kind of works. But that's been kind of the thing actually. We nearly didn't have a second book. And we nearly didn't have a second book because when you read Battle for the Bluff, the first edition, there are a lot of errors in it. And there are a lot of errors in it because it was a little bit rushed. And it was rushed because, we were talking about ego before, so one of the things that I've found as we've gotten into this is that people will approach you and they say, oh, you're just amazing, this is great. And they might say, can we, sort of build you a film, or can we do this, or... and it's really easy to kind of get sucked into that sort of, oh wow, somebody's actually paying attention to my writing, yeah.
You want to wait for a second, you want to answer that, bro?
So that whole piece of you kind of have these people sort of saying, look, you're doing this amazing work, and sometimes it's really hard to differentiate whether there's any guts to that. And one of the things that we had was a situation where right early on, there was a person who had connected with Bruce who was saying, look, you're doing this amazing work, you're writing this stuff, it's great. And he, we were talking about ego here, so he had sort of picked up on this, and this person said, well, I'm in Auckland and I'm an author, and I'm going to connect with you, and what we'll do is I'll come down to Nelson, we'll do a book launch. And he went, yep, that's fantastic, but I was still editing the book at the time. Which meant that really it was like, well, this person's going to be here in a month, you've got like 2 weeks to finish editing this book and we've got to get it printed. So it was quite, it was fairly intense. So I took some time off work, finished editing the book, it was put through really quickly, and I gave it to Bruce in a Word document and he submitted it. And then we got it back and we had 48 hours to proofread it, and clearly I didn't proofread it in 48 hours because it's a lot of words, and then when it was printed, And then the copy press did a most incredible job. So local, trying to support local businesses, copy press did an amazing job to actually get it printed for this, launch date. And unfortunately, the woman who had was going to come down and do the co-launch with Bruce pulled the plug at the last minute. So literally, it was like a week before she said, "Actually, I'm not coming." So it was a real team effort to actually get that done in that short time frame. But what happened is then I sat down and I'm reading this thing, and I'm like, my name's on this book as an editor, I'm very detail oriented, you may probably have guessed that. So I was reading this and I'm like, it's not what was written in the book. And I read a bit more, I'm like, there's a grammatical error there, this is terrible, oh my god, there's a typo. And I was getting more and more agitated, and it turned out that Bruce had taken the Word version and gone, actually, she doesn't know what she's talking about. And he changed it. Because I was looking at, and it's already printed, right? So we've now got 100 books with all of these mistakes in it. So I think at the time, I sat down and said, I was sitting with one of my friends and I said, look, I'm gutted because this is my reputation, right? I'm supposedly an editor, but there's all these mistakes in this book and it's like really hurting. And I spoke to one of my friends and she went, well, he's military, why don't you go talk to him in military speak and talk about sort of, rules of engagement. So that's what we did. I sat down and we had a conversation. I said, right, we have to have these, rules of engagement around how we do things. So, if anybody was actually looking at co-authoring, the first thing I'd say is set down the ground rules of what actually, how you're going to manage this. Because we learned the hard way, right? So Battle for the Bluff 1, which is the one that's here at the moment, has got it's like a Turkish carpet. It's got lots of mistakes in it, and we've spent the last probably maybe 6 months refining it, going back to what was the original edited version. I mean, I found mistakes that I missed as well. I will say someone actually had this incredible idea of actually putting it into text to speech. And one of the things I've found is we put the book into a text-to-speech sort of, app, and your ears pick up what your eyes don't. So one of the things I found was that you can read this thing 100 times and you won't see the mistake. It's like sending it in. When you print something, you sent an email, right, and you send it, you've refined it, you know exactly what you've written, and then you hit send, and then you find a mistake, right? That's how we work. The same thing goes on with these books, except that, you put it out there, and, people will read it. They do come back and say, well, actually, that's not the right word, or actually, you've made a mistake there. So we're hoping that, yes, it's a Turkish carpet with the mistakes in it.
But it'll be a first edition.
But it's the first edition. The second edition is at the printers at the moment, so we are producing a second edition of both books, with hopefully the mistakes fixed.
But despite that, the story comes through strongly. So that's what it's about. It's about the story. Yes. Yeah. And I know exactly what you mean about you can read what you've written, but you tend to read. I know as a journalist, I've done this too many times. I read what I think I've written, and then find out actually. So that goes. So, has anyone got any questions of these two people?
Yep. I'm Leanne, and I work for BC Publishing. A question, your story, The Settlement, is actually based in Little Wanganui, and you write in the pub in Little Wanganui as well. Yes. How do the people of that small community relate to you telling a story about where they live?
A lot of them wonder which person is who in the book. What will you? Is that me? It could be. I actually get bits of different people and mash them together. So, like one of the characters, like Ollie, is a number of about 3 different people, and I just put them in the sort of person that they are. So most of them, well, I'm starting a few there. So yeah, they love it. They're probably a little bit hesitant because I'm now making Little Wanganui and Karamea popular. We don't want more people.
They are. We're really proud of the story being in our backyard.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I know you're talking about using like older technology. Have you reached out to the Higgins a library, one they like run stuff off called Steam Engines, but they have a library of really, really old books from like 1800s, 1900s on part instruction on how to set up these machines.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking it'd be a really good resource.
Yeah, always looking for resources, and picking people's brains. Like there's a scene in one of the books. I'm going to talk about the helicopters. So these helicopters, and my husband's a helicopter pilot, and I was asking him, I'm like, well, how does that work? Push down on, like he's written push down on the throttle, but that's not something I've ever heard you say. So raise the collective. So okay, right. So it's actually trying to listen to people who are experts and do that research and try and make it as authentic as possible. We did have to use a little bit of a artistic license in book 2, just for actions, sort of, but it's been great having sort of people that you can kind of pick their brains and ask, but also knowing that it's about human nature as well. So a lot of the what I add to the story is not necessarily technical. It's that what is it like to be a human being, and what are the emotions and sort of thoughts behind those people and those characters. Because I think that was the other thing about picking up that book the first time. I wasn't invested in those characters. I'm like, person dies, and I'm like, but I want it to hurt, right? I really want this person to actually be connected enough to these characters that actually, if I kill this person off, what does that look like? How does that actually feel for the people who are reading it? So adding that sort of human dimension to it, relationships, how people connect with each other, all of that sort of stuff is really important, so that people actually feel something. I think that's, when you read a book, you want to feel something, right?
And you do that, don't you? You're not kind to all your characters.
I am. He's the one who wants to kill everyone off.
Well, without giving anything away, there is one death that will be very emotional for readers, I think.
There will be, yes. And the way it affects other people as well, for like other characters in the book, because as Jen has done, she's actually made these relationships as in real people of how they would react and how they would respond. So as I want people to really love the good guys, they might get annoyed with one of the guys, but that's human nature. They'll hate one person, and I want people, when someone has a loss that's a good guy, I want them to feel that loss as well, but to sort of have that empathy on them, and that's horrible. Or when a bad guy gets his comeuppance, it's like, not good.
But it's also like, realising that good guys are not always good. Like there's grey amongst that. Like human beings are not, innately like angelic. And when you read, like Brad is one of my favourite characters. Shake is, I really enjoy, playing with Shake. He's one of my favourite characters, right? But the thing I like about it is that, he's not angelic. He's got bad sides to him as well. But it kind of raises those questions about what happens when people are doing bad things for goodness, and where are those lines? Because it's grey, it's blurred. And you get those, you have that sort of whole thought about what is good and what is bad. Talk about the ultimate good versus evil battle. But when you're on what side you're on depends on whether you view it as good or evil. So I think it's an interesting sort of dimension to try and step into somebody else's world and understand it and understand the way they connect.
Anyone else have a question? Yes.
So, you're self-published, well done.
Thank you, sir.
You did 100 print run, well done. That was first edition, so the odd minor glitch in it. I'm assuming you didn't dump that first print run for the second edition. I'm assuming you didn't accidentally leave a copy in everyone's letterbox. What's the process that's in the distributing that's allowed you to go into the second edition?
It's basically turning up and doing author's talk and this helps with the ego getting too big when 9 turns up. So they go into libraries and you ask if you can sell books there, and they always go yes. I have the Little Wanganui pub has both books there that people can buy. I always have a book with me, so I have little books up there. They'll have a look like this, and they'll go and pick it up and have a look. And it's basically one-on-one selling. We will be in Page and Blackmore shortly as we're going back through copy press, and hopefully then get a third one. So we're in a couple of stores, like Leanne actually has done a lot of the hard yakka, like we're in the libraries, Paper Plus, and information centres and that. So it's just
Scorpio box.
Shoe leather.
Thank you.
On Facebook.
Instagram.
Or Instagram, yeah,
Yeah.
whatever. I don't actually run it.
So I haven't read the books yet. I will. I'm just thinking about what is the relationship between this community of people you've got and your books, and this sounds like a very drastic, very dystopian world out there. So how are they communicating? Because you think about, I can't help but think about people like Peter Thiel, who, and his other rich Americans in particular, who've got these big houses in New Zealand with bunkers. I imagine they're thinking of a similarly dystopian world.
You sure you haven't read the book?
So maybe I'm on the wrong track. I just wonder what's the relationship between this big, wide, sounds very evil world and this group of people who sound quite intimate with each other.
Basically, the whole West Coast is separated from the rest of New Zealand because the East Coast and everything is basically laid waste because of nuclear fallout. The whole West Coast is actually basically looked after because you've got the ranges there, and the way the weather patterns there spares them from the radiation. There are bunkers involved.
Okay, no spoilers.
One thing, Bruce.
Yes.
I've just done my 3rd edition. I still found my mistake. The name of the person, which I
Thank you.
I'll correct it
Just when my ego just started to
Don't feel too bad about it. Talking about the ports, you see, Little Wanganui was quite a busy port at one time.
Yes.
So maybe you might think about using it as a trading port or Caribbean. After the Murchison earthquake, of course, they both came up too far for the ships to get in. So they've never been used since. But that's something you might put in the back of your mind.
You might have to wait for the 3rd book.
Bring the seafarers back.
Give us some more questions, yes?
I just wanted to ask what the process is for self-publishing after you've written it and polished it, and what do you do next?
Our process was I did Google search on local printers, and Copy Press came up first. Then I saw what the connections they've got, like real New Zealand books. So I just went in there and said, "Can I have these printed?" They then talked through what size, colour, design. So then they will work with what you've got. They'll make a few adjustments, and then they'll give you a proof, and you go through it. And once you're happy with the proof, avoiding eye contact here, then you hand it back. Generally, they would like 50% first up, and then with that, you do get your first 50 books are included in the price. And once the print has been done, then you go in and pay for the balance. When I require more books, it generally takes about 2 weeks for them to receive the order. They get it, and then have the books, and then you go and pick them, pay for them and pick them up.
And then you hope you've got a really good marketing person who will take it. I think that's the other thing. It's like also, it seems the process, the technical process of like, printing a book is like, is the printing part. But it's actually, a lot of it's about having the proofreading and going through. So even when you've got your proof, your initial proof, we've just re-proofed Revolt. And honestly, it looked like one of those sort of like, confetti things with all of the little post-it notes. We've just gone through and gone, we actually, it's really minor stuff, quite a lot of it. But actually, like proofing and then re-proofing, and by the time you actually get to the end of it, you've read it that many times that you're not seeing the mistakes.
And you're sick of the book.
But I think that once you get out the other side of that, you've got these books in your hands, and you're like, then what happens? So I think that's one of the things that you found was that it was trying to get your name out and trying to actually go and say, well, who do I talk to? And Nelson's very good for like this whole New Zealand really, word of mouth. It's not what you know, it's who you know. I think a lot of people would agree with that. But having sort of allies in that space and actually, talking about it, and also having a why. I think that was the other thing. Is that initially when I first met Bruce and he was writing these books, it was very much I'm just going to write a book. And then as we started talking about it, it was actually, well, there's a whole veterans mental health component behind this. It's actually the core of why we're doing it. So it's the why behind what we're doing is about that. It's not actually about the books and not about publishing. It's about how do we actually get people to think about what it's like to be, and go through a traumatic experience and then come out the other side of it. Veterans, people who are working front line, that sort of thing, they carry that sort of stuff, and try to raise awareness of, like the scars that people carry. Make it, normal to go, well, actually things are not okay. It's okay to not be okay. Start writing and things like that. So the why behind what we're doing. I'm a big fan of Simon Sinek as well. He's a sort of inspirational guy who talks about, find your why. And when we started talking about this, it was like the why for us is getting the sort of awareness around what veterans' mental health is actually like. So in the book, Brad he comes across as he's quite sort of full of himself at the very beginning of the thing. But as you sort of get towards book 3, he's much more human. You're starting to see the flaws, you see the cracks, you see a few of the sort of short-tempered moments. He's not just and it was a little bit like that at the very beginning. It's like, I'm here to save the day. And he's like that by the time he gets to the end of book 3. He's much more human, and you start to see the flaws and it's finding your why. That kind of deviated, didn't it?
Part of the process of you put the story in your head and you wanting to write it, when do you know how long your book's going to be? Is it something that just sort of happens, or do you have a goal in mind?
With the trilogy, I had the beginning, middle, and end, and I knew what I wanted to put down. When I got to about the 60,000 word mark, I went, this is going to be 3 books, because I don't think I would ever be able to sell a 300,000 word book. You wouldn't be able to do it. And it's also, get resales. I've had the whole story in my head on how it was going to be. The first book took me 6 weeks to write. Took Jen 9 months, 8 months. Second book, there's a lot more technical stuff in there, a bit more involved. That took 2.5 months, but the editing had dropped a lot more because I get hit enough times in the head and I'll listen to what she says and I start picking up stuff. It's like, don't do that. Okay. Third one, that took a lot longer because I had to sort of tie up all the loose ends, all the different threads, because you do need the continuity, which is hard when you go over 3 books. I forget people. I put the wrong person in the line. wrong person's doing the wrong thing.
He changes their names. What the thing you were talking about?
How's he doing that?
That one's already dead. Why is he doing that?
So I've become a better writer because of Jen. I mean, she's a brilliant teacher. Like I don't know, I'm still struggling with tense. I thought I was tense just sitting up here. Apparently it's a different tense. So yeah, I've always, like for the other two books that I've stupidly started writing, I've already got a start, middle and end for both. It's just connecting everything. The start here somehow has to get to the middle. This is the threads we do it. There might be a couple of rabbit holes, and then everything tidies up at the end. I mean, that's how I personally work it. And I'll just make it up as I go.
Thank you.
Do you have copies of these two first books available here today?
Yes, they're out the front. Yeah.
So we can purchase them?
Oh, yes, please.
Oh.
Any other questions?
Oh, Bruce, just talking about books and names. It's very easy, especially when you're talking about something that actually happened. My partner was trying to hide the names because of people she didn't really like. And unfortunately, his real name cropped up in the very last chapter. So that was embarrassing parts like that. That was in the first edition, of course. So that actually went into the second edition.
Well, it's ironic you say that. On my first printout of my first draft, the person who I based Isabel on, Izzy, I actually wrote her name. And there's this little piece that's been torn off and it's on the fridge. It was. I was a bit jealous that she decided that Brad was better than me, though.
Any other questions? No? Well, thank you so much, you two. I know that you were looking forward to this and not. But good on you for coming here and talking about your work and the stories behind it, which I think is so important. And please keep going, because you started something that sounds like it's going to be unstoppable and something that perhaps New Zealand literature needs. So, well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Elaine, for a really lively and interesting conversation about dystopian novels. And I'm more than I think the stuff.
Well done.